So first things first, gentlemen, how are you coping in these crazy times of ours?
Good.
Well, not too bad. Fine. There's a bit of hope in the air now, so it's not too bad. Excuse me. So yeah, it seems to it's been both a very long time and a very short time. I don't really understand. You know, it seems to have went by very quickly, but it's very slow when it happens. But at least it looks like this summer might be quite exciting, and we can get out of the house and do things.
And obviously, you have a new album coming out, which is also very exciting and entails a great deal of work on your part, I suppose. So let's jump into the album, because what I find interesting is in the lead up, kind of obviously you were a band before, split up, did your own things, got together around 2016, played some shows, but one thing that struck me that I read is that you didn't want to kind of reform or create new music unless you had something to say. What was that thing that you both had to say with your eyes on a new album?
I think it was maybe not necessarily having something specific to say, but like we got back together and did the concerts and really enjoyed them, enjoyed playing the old songs with the band. So I think it's important. I mean, it's difficult when bands get back together there's not many success stories. It's usually like big cash-ins or just things looking bad or reissues and stuff. So I think because we're still doing our own careers in the middle time, that we're still interested in making music and achieving things musically, like making a better album than we've done before. So with Arab Strap, it was never a given that we'd record again, but we started doing demos and they sounded good and we're happy with them. So it's more like not about having something to say, but about if there was something worth like pursuing musically. So, and we liked that it started sounding good immediately, like music, lyrics and stuff. So it was quite obvious that, well, it became apparent to us that, yeah, we've got something to offer that is worthwhile. So
did you notice that immediately as you kind of reconvened that chemistry was still there, that you could easily like you say, form something that was worthwhile pursuing?
I'm not sure we were sure it was worthwhile to start with, but once we started to work on it and the demos took shape, it became apparent that it was something we wanted to continue. Yeah, but we'd actually done something before about 10 years ago, where someone asked us to do some music for a film. But it just ended up sounding like Arab Strap, so we scrapped it because we didn't want to reform Arab Strap 10 years ago, and we didn't want to do something that sounded like that either. So, I think we can only ever really sound like Arab Strap when we make something. It seems to be that we fall into it pretty quickly. It's it's not a there's nothing discussed or any. Are any plans? It just works out that way and it happens that way.
Yeah, to answer the main bit of the question though was, I think we did the song Turning Over Bones first, and then I think it was Another Clockwork Day in Comparison. And I think immediately with Bones, there was that little thing there that made it worthwhile, like when we both come together and do our stuff. It's kind of Bones immediately was kind of had that thing that I think Arab Strap was. So.
And this feel, because when I listen to the album, it feels very cohesive, the way the songs both sound and kind of the themes that are being discussed. So was this very clear, or is this something that kind of makes itself apparent as you are working on it, kind of the direction, and both musically and lyrically?
Yeah, as I was saying, there's nothing that's planned. It wasn't even discussed. I don't think we just started making a record, and then lyrically anyway, themes begin to appear. So then by the time I'm writing the last few songs, I kind of know what I need to write about or what kind of theme it's going to have. But generally speaking, as I say, we don't plan anything, we just do. And I mean that's what's great about now. I mean, in the old days, we wouldn't know what a song was about even as we went in the studio, because we recorded and wrote in the studio all the time. Like the old Arab Strap songs are usually like the third time we'd played them together or something like that. So this time it was much, because of the technology, we can plan it out more so and have it much more ready. So it was a more efficient way to do it. But
Did
pretty
you?
much.
Because obviously, since the last time you kind of created a full collection of full body of work together, it's been a while. So, and with all the technological changes and even shifts in musical landscape, did that affect your approach at all?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we split up in 2006. Now they've got these things called guitar tuners. Like you plug the guitar into it and you turn the strings and actually go in tune. No, but yeah, technology had a huge impact on us, and the fact that we used to send each other, I'd send Aiden cassettes of guitar bits and stuff. Cassettes like a small plastic thing with like magnetic tape inside.
And I was just on the tail end of that. I think I had a Sony Walkman as well.
Cool, right. So yeah, but now we can record. We've both kind of got mini home studios, microphones, computers, so we can send stuff over and start working on ideas. And with this album, it was like probably 2018 we started doing stuff like that. So there was no rush. We didn't have a deadline for the album, so we were touring our own records in the meanwhile as well, and it just kind of slowly accumulated. And at one point, things went further, and we thought, well, we should maybe record these properly. And then I think Aiden had spoke to Stuart Braithwaite from Mogwai and Rock Action, and then that was kind of just an immediate, yeah, they want to put the record out. So things started moving probably the second half of 2019.
Okay.
And yeah, so.
Well, let's get into the songs a little bit more then, because one thing I found is that it doesn't, like you say, it's been created before kind of the whole lockdown and COVID, everything happens, but it feels very, to me at least, maybe that's just my taste, but it feels very relevant today. Have you found certain elements in it now that have changed in meaning from when you first made it?
No, I don't think they've changed meaning or anything. No, I mean, I think it just so happens, I think, that the world kind of ended up a bit like an Arab Strap song for a wee while. It was pretty dark and grim, but also filled with moments of delight and humour. So,
sure.
No, I don't feel that it's changed anything. When I was writing the words, I thought it would all be over by now. I thought when the record came out, no one would want to hear about the pandemic because everybody be in the pub and enjoying themselves and trying to forget about it. But obviously, I was wrong because the government didn't really handle it very well. So, it never. It may have affected maybe the last few songs simply because of a time issue. I think because of the pandemic, there's probably a couple of songs on the album that maybe wouldn't have been because we didn't have time to finish them, or I didn't have time to write words. So it affected the album in that way, but not in the content itself, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were about 2 weeks away from finishing the record last middle of March when the lockdown started.
Right.
And we were rushing to get the album finished, but then we had like 2 or 3 months to sit and go, wait a minute, this could be better. This doesn't sound good. Let's do a new song. And so it gave us, it's definitely a better record because of it. But everything was written pretty much. I don't think the lyrics or anything were affected by COVID. So.
No.
Well, let's start with kind of the first song then, which you say is one of the first that you started working on as well, The Turning of Our Bones. Do you remember what kind of mindset you were in as you were creating that? Because one thing I don't know the way you work, whether the music comes first and then the lyrics are the other way around, but I can imagine both of those things influencing each other.
I think it started with a drum machine, didn't it? That was the first thing. I recorded a drum machine beat. I found an old drum machine at home, a DRM 15, which is all just presets. It's a brilliant wee sound it has. It was the first one to have I think it was the first one to have a hand clap sound on it. So it was very popular in the 70s with disco and stuff. So I found that and recorded one of the wee beats and sent it to Malcolm. And then he sent me the first few guitar parts back. And that must have been 2018 2018, was it? I think sometime in 2018. And I mean, we were both working on other stuff. It wasn't even when we started, we weren't even focused just on Arab Strap. We were both touring with other albums and stuff. So it was kind of written, out with our usual working day. It was
it's a funny song as well. I mean, Aiden, I don't know how much Aiden put into the actual drum machine, the drum beat and the changes. Because then I'd play guitar along. I think the start guitar bit I'd been working on the same day or the day before, and then tried to match it up. But then I probably changed my guitar bit where his drums changed, and it's probably accidental and doesn't work properly. And then I send it back to Aiden, and he does his own interpretation. And then I think the next time he sent it back, Aiden had put all the string samples and saxophones and stuff, and it worked. And it's still quite a bit of a mystery because I'm having to learn that for playing live. Is not like the changes aren't where I would put them in my head. So I've got to learn how to do weird things like that. Because it's wrong.
Luckily or unluckily, you have some time to figure that out, how to play that live.
I get it 1 in 5 times.
Fair enough. But when come do the words come in then? And Aiden, do you discuss these themes with Malcolm? Do you discuss them amongst each other?
No, but I mean, we do. Everything was demoed apart from one song, I think, well in advance. So I mean, there weren't many surprises. In the old days, I mean, Malcolm wouldn't hear some lyrics until the day we were mixing the song because I hadn't finished them. So no. With this one, it was all very much demoed in advance, and it had, so he would have heard everything. If there was anything he thought was terrible, I'm sure he would have. I'm sure he would have told me. But no, we don't really discuss it beforehand. No.
Aiden, for you then, what is your approach in terms of the lyrics? And because I know, obviously, you've been writing for a long time. You've written some poetry a while back as well. What do you try to find in kind of the stories that you're telling?
Again, I've never really thought about it. I mean, things that appeal to me for this record that all came from. Some of it's inspired by real life. I mean, most of it's probably inspired by real life, but some of it's things I read about books and I read about in books rather. And I mean, as I said, there wasn't any design to it. It just sort of slowly became apparent that I was writing about things. I mean, writing to me is very much, I don't sit down with a plan or an outline or anything like that. It's, I mean, I'm discovering what I'm writing about as I go as well. It's only maybe halfway through the record I realise I'm writing about certain themes. In this case, it was people who were desperate. It had a nighttime theme. So then I started to think about the night, and I did some reading on it. So like Kababylon was one of the later ones we did. I think it was maybe, certainly lyrically, it was maybe like the second last I think I had finished or something. And that's because I read a book about night because I knew that there was that sort of theme in the record. So it just happens as it happens. I mean, I don't plan it out. I don't write any sort of ideas. I don't have an idea of something that I want to say. It usually just starts with a phrase or a couple of words or a chorus or something like that.
But you mentioned this nighttime theme, which is really shines through in the music as well. For instance, I really like the guitar work. I think it was on Tears on Tour where it really fits kind of that nightlife ambience. I don't know if that's the right word, ambience or something. So Malcolm, what was your approach musically then, and together with you, Aiden, to kind of create this landscape or atmosphere?
Well, I mean, musically, we're both. It's not like Aiden just does the lyrics and I do the music. It's like we both do the music. Like Aiden does loads of all the drums and samples, loops. Sometimes you start songs with piano bits and stuff. But for me, musically, it was just I knew this was going to be an important album, so I wanted to make sure that there was good guitar riffs and memorable tunes and hooks and nice things. Just comforting music, I think. So, yeah, it was, yeah. But then as the Aiden sends stuff back with like words and stuff, and then we get an idea of what feel the song's having and the drive and stuff, like what tempo it's going to be. Then we just start working in the studio with Paul, and it's sometimes, I mean, we have different musical backgrounds, we like different styles, so that's where a lot of our own style comes from, I think, is not agreeing on certain things. So the studio can be a bit of a furnace just for getting ideas and getting rid of ideas and whittling down ideas that maybe the other person doesn't like, or just recording when they're not there, or things like that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, let's dive into a couple of songs specifically then, because I read somewhere that Fable of the Urban Fox was slightly inspired or somewhat inspired by the notion of refugees or kind of these streams of migration. And so where did that kind of, I don't know if it's an analogy, I'm not good with those things, but where did that story sort of come from?
It started with real foxes who live in my neighbourhood, and I was excited. I would go out at night time with my son and try and see them sometimes, and then I just realised I didn't know anything about them. So I got a book, Foxes on Earth, it's called, and there was a couple of chapters about how the right-wing press demonised foxes when they moved into the city. And of course, they moved into the city because they were being hunted in the countryside. So it was an obvious metaphor for refugees and migrants, but also it's about the way the papers control public opinion. This week, it could be about the royal family, because I was watching the news earlier, and it's amazing how they've completely. It's amazing how completely vicious these papers are, and they don't like someone, and they don't get their way, and someone doesn't behave the way they want them to, and it's exactly the same thing. I don't have as much sympathy for them, obviously, as I do for foxes and migrants, but but it's the same thing. It's the same principle. It's the right-wing media controlling the public opinion.
Yeah, it's that predatory behavior almost. It's very...
Yeah.
Sorry, Malcolm, you wanted to say something?
No, it's just a different discussion. I was just going to say, I don't know if I always blame the media. I thought it's like people could easily just stop buying these things and it would collapse. So it's like the media kind of gives what... It's hard to say where it starts, chicken and egg and stuff, but people could protest by ignoring them.
But that's a very interesting...
So that's the thing, because it's their one source of information, so they don't, I mean, that's... People love it. They love that shit. Anyway, let's...
No, but it's a very interesting thing, because you've always, I've thought about that. Why not boycott all of the things that you don't agree with? And I mean, that's a very easy way and a very healthy way. If you don't like something on TV, just turn the channel, kind of that idea. But at the same time, why is it, you think, then, that so many people like that dirt, or the kind of that? Because it's true in all kinds of... there's shitty music that millions of people love. There's, you know what I mean? There's for some reason it attracts people still.
Well, I mean, that's all subjective. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
The problem, I think, being we're kind of outside the music scene, for instance, and kind of this alternative left field sort of thing. And we're like that politically too. You find yourself, we're not, obviously, I mean, look at Brexit and the current UK government, we're not in the same place as people who vote for these things, and I think it's quite easy to forget that how other people live and how other people form their opinions and how other people want to vote. So I think I mean, I look at the Daily Mail every day because I find it fascinating. You know, I don't agree with everything it says, but you know, I look at it. I mean, it's free, so I'm not giving them any money. So, you know, as long, you know, if I was, if they wanted paid for it, I wouldn't do it. But it is, I think it's a really good thing to look at the other side of the spectrum and realize how they report things and how they attract readers. You know.
Well, at least you get to understand your fellow man a little bit better if you know how those opinions are formed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying people are stupid or anything.
No.
I mean, very, very intelligent people read these things. It's just in this day and age, anything that's printed seems to be of value, or people assume that it's true. You know, when we look at the COVID hoax stuff, which is utter nonsense.
Sure.
But, you know, people really, really get involved and believe in things that are often untrue.
Well, like I said, I really liked the guitar solos on Tears on Tour, and especially I like the tone of your guitar. So what did you do anything specifically to get a certain kind of that ominous feel?
No, it was actually done here.
Okay.
And just changed the pickups on my Stratocaster and got a trebly one and a bassy one, and then tried to be. It's a weird one because Aiden didn't like that solo when he first heard it because it's too. It's kind of like we're not a traditional band, so we don't normally have things that are rooted in blues or traditional rock, and I'm not a fan either. But I listen to a lot of guitar music, and there's a fine line between getting it. Like, we did a session last week and played that song, and even like in the studio we tried to re-record the solo, and I couldn't do it again because when the first time I did it, I was being ironic, and it was kind of like taking the piss out of bands that do that kind of solo, but it worked with the lyrics and the way the song ended,
right?
And it had the right feel. But I could probably never do it again without becoming the wanker I was trying to send up. You know, it's almost like it's a bad impression of a good guitar player.
I find that very interesting because
I like the way it sounds. I love it, but it's just a weird one.
What I find interesting as well is because you've obviously you've toured together back in the day, and you still tour on your own work. But what is the joy in touring? Because what I hear from artists as they are getting older is that it becomes more exhausting. How have you found this?
I mean, it's actually less exhausting with Arab Strap than anything else we do, because, I mean, the last tour I did was with R.M. Hubbard, and I was the tour manager and he was the driver. And, you know, we did everything ourselves. We had a couple of guys in the band and a sound man, but all that was done ourselves. With Arab Strap, though, we can afford a crew and a tour manager, so it's actually much easier to tour with Arab Strap. We don't have to do half as much of the work as we normally do. So, I mean, certainly, but touring does get a wee bit more. It is a harder work as you get a bit older, but it's something we all look forward to.
It's a different thing.
We wouldn't have made an album if we didn't want to tour it, you know. So
we're quite lucky that with the band we can tour like that, because there's still people that want to hear us. But it's a different thing touring as an older guy than it is when you're young. Young's all about, you want to have fun, have a good time, do some shows and enjoy after the gigs and stuff, and have fun with your mates. And as you get older, it's more about, you've got to make sure you've got decent music that you're playing every night, otherwise it becomes a chore. And just like Aiden said, at my last tour I was driving the van and tour managing and all the rest, and I enjoyed it because it was fulfilling. But it's different from when you're 20 to when you're like nearly 50. So yeah,
right.
But if we didn't enjoy it, we wouldn't be doing it. So
sure.
Arab Strap's kind of like a different. I don't see Arab Strap as even the same sort of thing as the smaller tours. You know, it's a bigger event that it needs a different approach. You know, it's not the same as any of the other tours I've done in the past 10, 15 years at all. It's a it requires more preparation, I think, and more work in sort of pre-production and all that kind of stuff. But the actual touring part is, especially on a sleeper bus, is very, very easy. That said, when we did the festivals in 2017, we were getting the 5 o'clock flight to 5 a.m. flight to a lot of these places. So, I mean, that was quite tiring as well, but it was always worth it, you know.
Yeah, is it that hour or however long on stage that makes all the rest worth it?
Yeah, well, we never wanted to play live. We had no plans to play live when we started, and we were kind of coerced into it by Chemical Underground because they wanted us to promote our album, and it was. I mean, that's why our early gigs were a bit shit, because I was drunk quite a lot of the time, and I was drunk because I was scared. I didn't want to be on the stage.
Right.
But after a couple of years of that, I came to love it, and ever since, I think it's I'm not sure it's I'm not sure it's the best part of doing it. It seems like two very different things to be making a record and playing a show. Or it's a much different thing. A show relies on the audience, and you need to plan for that. You don't really plan for that in a record, because you're kind of controlling the environment when you're making a record. You can guide people in the right way with what you're doing, but you need to make sure you're engaging with the audience at a gig. Otherwise, you can play the best gig you've ever played. You could be absolutely perfect, but if you don't engage with the audience, then it's going to be pretty dull,
I think as you get older as well, you kind of learn, like, you have to realize, like, the hour you get on stage and all the stuff before and after it is important, because there's either you enjoy the musicality of it, you enjoy the feedback with the audience, and you can get a buzz if it's a great gig. But if that's the only reason you're doing it, like, I think maybe when I was younger, you kind of don't handle the rest of the day that well. So I think when you get older, you have to not just rely on that 1 hour on stage. You have to, like, enjoy being with the people around you. And like when we toured back in the day, it's like I was guilty of sleeping too much and not seeing the places I was visiting. Maybe a lot of us were. And it's better now to try and take advantage of the whole day and not just say there's going to be one good hour at the end of it, because you have to, otherwise you're bored and you have to, so I think as an adult, you have to appreciate the whole day, not just an hour. So.
Okay, there's one last question then. What do you hope that people, because the record is out now, what do you hope people hear in it? And especially after, did the absence of the band, did that have any mental effect on you as well?
I'm not really sure. All I just wanted to do, I think we both just wanted to make sure that we were very happy with it, and it didn't sound too much like the old Arab Strap. It had to sound like a record that was made today, rather than with the tools of today and the attitudes of today and everything that we've learned in the period since. And that seems to have worked. I mean, that's what people are saying. All I can go, obviously, the people who send you nice tweets and things, the very few people are going to tell you your shit on Twitter, to your face. So, but the way it's going seems great. The reviews have been incredible, and we seem to have achieved what we had done, because there aren't a lot of bands who reform and make a record that is as good as their earlier stuff, and that was important, I think. And I think we've achieved that, to the extent that I'm terrified about doing anything else now, in case it's total shit.
I think we've made a good record. I hope people just get comfort from the vibe of it, the music, the lyrics, and just kind of enjoy the layers, and kind of go back to it, and I can be a good friend to them. It's a good sounding record, and I think it does sound different from other stuff that's out just now. So.
Well, I think you've been asked this a million of times, but can I assume then that there might be some more new material in the future?
Maybe. I mean, there's a few songs we didn't quite finish, and a couple we didn't release as well. So, but I mean, I think they're pretty much designated to B-sides. But I think we maybe do a single or an EP. But there's no plans for an album just now because we just want to wait and get the gigs done. You know, it's important that we do a new tour with a new album and then just see where we get to, because of the pandemic. I mean, the idea is we'll be touring this record until the end of next year, hopefully, not constantly, but we'll be focusing. So we'll see how it develops, but there's no plans for an album yet. But there may well be. We'll see. As I said, I'm terrified.
I think because of the way this record turned out and the fact that we weren't in a rush to make it and we've got other things that we can do outside the band, I think the last thing either of us wants is to suddenly be in like a conveyor belt again of two album. So it's something we can't even plan yet. It's like we've got our own things to do, but then if we get that little bit of hunger for it again to kind of go, let's make some new songs and see how they go, then yeah, definitely. But it's kind of, I don't think we're not getting tied into a schedule of. Plus, this one only came out 3 days ago, so these are great.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, yeah, let's focus in on this new record, and hopefully you get to play it live very soon. Aiden, Malcolm, thank you so much for your time.
No, cheers. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. You still got your tree up.
Yeah, it's a Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's usually up until April or so.